Welcome back to the latest episode of the NLB Pod. I'm your host, Dr. Farimang Touray Jr., and I appreciate you guys tuning back in for another episode that we're about to hit today. And today we're talking about the preseason. We hit offseason last week and what to expect and what to start to look for and how your offseason should look. But now we're going to start to get into the preseason and what that should look like. You start to ramp up towards regular season games and making sure you're ready. Especially as now we're getting into October, November. Basketball season is coming to start. You might have already been playing in some fall leagues or travel teams or whatever the case may be. But usually around like right after Thanksgiving, start tryouts are coming up. Start thinking about getting ready for the high school season, or if you're in college, you're starting to get ready for, exhibition games or preseason games or some tournaments to get the season going. If you're in the pros, season's probably already started. So now you're getting into that point where you're starting to ramp up a little bit, starting to get ready. So this is the time where I think it's really important, and we're just gonna highlight a couple of things. The overall goals of the preseason, some things to look for in your training workouts. Now starting to think about how practices are about to be structured, managing workloads and recovering well, and just the mental side, preparing for a long season coming up, and how to transition from preseason to regular season to get ready for everything that's coming about. So I think it's cool. I think back to when I was in college and we went from off season to preseason. October 15th was our first official practice when you could, what the NCAA allowed you to officially practice. And I remember we used to do a lot of like conditioning, outside running, going onto the track. Uh, Not a lot of organized practice, but just a lot of conditioning, weight room stuff, just getting ready. But once October 15th hit, it was a different level of intensity. We had whole practices where we didn't touch the ball and it was just straight defensive stuff, defensive drills, lots of conditioning, a lot of ramp up in intensity just to make sure that players are ready to go. And if, you're going to be logging heavy minutes, that, you're ready for that workload. But if you also, if you're the 15th guy, or 15th guy or girl, you also got to be ready for in case somebody gets hurt. And with preseason, you also got to think about, you went from doing a lot of high volume stuff, a lot of slow, heavy, potentially heavy weights, to now going fast, reactive, a lot more jumps, a lot more contacts. And when you think about it, when you come back into training camp or you come back into into official practices and maybe you didn't do that much in the off season and now you're coming back into a big spike in workload, that's where a lot of injuries can happen, just because you went from not doing a lot to suddenly being doing a lot. And the amount of bone stress fractures or bony injuries that you see just from a sudden spike in workload, a spike in impact, and your body wasn't ready for that spike is astounding, especially at the lower body, just because you're using it all the time as a jumping athlete or a quick change of direction athlete. So building up for that change in intensity is a big part in just making sure, one, that you're ready to go for the regular season coming up. And there has to be progressive overload. That's why it's so important to have a plan for your off season and slowly start to build it up. So by the time, if you start in June, July, August, September, as you start to get back on the campus or school starts to begin again, by the time you have to ramp up, you've already built your base. You've already got your contacts in. You've already built the armor to know that you're ready. You're ready. If there is a spike, you can handle. You've built enough of a buffer to allow for you to continue to put forth the effort that you need to put forth when the time is required for it. And you're not worried about energy leakage or things breaking down because you weren't physically prepared for what had to happen, what was going to happen. And that's big on like having a good training program, but that's also, we start to notice, like we talked about, a shift in your program from some things more general, things more slow, to things more specific to basketball. So I talked about going from, just random conditioning and just running outside on trails, some more specific things, making sure your legs are under you, making sure that you can stay in a stance for a long period of time, just so that when it comes time to be in the game, when you're in the fourth quarter, you're in the second half, late in the game, you have the legs and you're not having to, it's hard to just train in season, or it's hard to train. You're looking to maintain, if not work on certain qualities, but it's just hard to gain strength if you're playing heavy minutes, if you're traveling, if you're handling school, all the stressors of being an athlete. And so that's where having this plan and being able to execute is where it becomes super important. So you see that shift from general to specific. And now we've increased the intensity, we've decreased the weight. And you had that flow upward trend, that reverse relationship as you were getting into the end of your offseason phase, where your volume is starting to go down, your intensity is starting to peak up, because a spike is coming where your intensity is going to have to raise it to another level as you start to get closer and closer to regular season. This might be a time where there's a lot of testing, and there's a lot of like some of the like three-quarter course sprint or max vertical jump or change of agility drills, or change of direction drills, just to make sure have some baselines. You've built the baseline with the oh excuse me, you've built the foundation with the off-season work, and now you're seeing where you're starting at, and then you might have like a 4 week preseason schedule. You were really working on, first step, change of direction, um, acceleration, jump, vertical jump, and you at the end of the 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you're going to test again, and that's where you're trying to maintain as you start to enter the season. And so now that you have those baselines, now that you have those markers, now you have also a base for if you were to get hurt, you would have some baseline numbers to strive for. So if you knew you did the lane agility drill and you got a certain time, that's the time you're aiming for. If you did the vertical jump test and you got X amount of inches, that's what you're aiming for, to know that you're getting close to your baselines as you return from injury. So it's a time to test. It's a time to see where players are starting at and to see where they can get to in a shorter period of time as their season starts, as the things start to ramp up, but also just making sure that, we have data, we have baselines of if something were to happen or something were to go south, this is what we're going to reach for, to know that when you were at your peak and you were fresh before game started, this is where you're at and this is what we're going to aim for. We're also looking at this is where it's important to do the off-season conditioning, because like I said, the conditioning just goes up. So making sure you're able to maintain a certain level of cardiovascular fitness specific to basketball, and making sure that you're able to withstand. If you got to play 40 minutes, you can play 40 minutes. If you got to play 40 minutes plus an overtime or two overtimes, you have enough in the tank to be able to go for as long as you need. Especially as the games get closer, games are really decided. Sometimes if you're playing good teams, they can be decided by one or two moments. And if you get to the ball first, late in the fourth quarter or late in the second half, that can be the difference between you winning a game, or your team winning a game, or your team losing a game. So making sure that you're elite conditioning wise and knowing that you're going to get tested. I was took part in the applied performance coaching mentorship earlier this year, and the head got the guy who runs it, Ramsey Najim. He's the head strength coach at the University of Kansas, and every September they have a gauntlet, I guess you could say, of conditioning that Coach Self puts their players through, and you're good once you get past the gauntlet, and all the guys are preparing for the gauntlet. So Ramsey and his team's job is to get the guys ready for the gauntlet. So he slowly starts to ease them in the off season. But by September comes, when it's time for the gauntlet, they've already got enough mileage and volume to be able to attack the gauntlet and come out on the other side. Not easy, not an easy task that they have to go through, but if you can make it through this, the idea is that you then have enough cardiovascular stamina and mental stamina to be able to withstand the rigors of playing the Big 12 and conference play and the tournament play, and you have enough of a base to get to where you need to be at the end of the day. So just making sure that you've mentally prepared yourself and not, you don't want to come into the preseason not having done any conditioning and try to work your way into game shape. You're setting yourself up for disaster. So doing the work early, even though it's annoying and no one likes to do extra conditioning, but it's going to pay off in the long run as the season starts to go on. You start to get tired and things start to get monotonous. It's the little things that you did early on that are going to help you thrive when it comes time to perform when you need to perform, when other people might not have taken the extra steps you've taken or your team has taken. And those things show up. They'll show up at a time, and you'll see if we'll see. We'll know if you're ready or not, if, other teams are fresher or quicker or are playing better as they get towards the end of the season, where you feel like you might have hit a wall. It's because you didn't do what you need to do early on to get to where you need to be, and you're trying to play your way into shape. So that's another big thing. And lastly, for just the last goal, just improving that mental focus and building your confidence of knowing that it's a long season. You've done everything you need to do to prepare for the rigors of it, the ups and the downs, and everything that's going to come your way, handling school, handling life, handling relationships, keeping up your grades, traveling to city, missing events, and knowing that it's going to be a up and down, but mentally knowing you're able to handle it, and two, knowing that you've done everything you need to do to build your confidence and be the best player that you can be, best player, best human that you can be. So now, some of the we talked a lot about some of the key elements, but it's just a big ramp up in intensity and making sure that you're ready for it. A lot more sports specific, higher intensity, lower volumes, increased rest times, just making sure that you're fresh for each training exercise, but also when it comes time to for the conditioning or the drills and things, you have been able to put your best foot forward. So those are some of the big changes that you see from offseason to preseason. Probably less less number of exercises if you're training, more focus on things that moving things fast, moving things for at a certain speed. If they got trackers on the barbells or the equipment that you're using to make sure you maintain the speed, is more so the focus than trying to move as much weight as possible. And then if your team has a gauntlet or a conditioning circuit, you want to make sure that you pass that early on so that they know that you have the cardiovascular fitness. And I think, another thing that I think about is if you're in good cardiovascular shape, I think that helps just build trust along from your coaching staff. If your coaches know you're in shape and they know they can put you in the game because one, you're not gonna get fatigued as fast. If you're not fatigued as fast, then you can make better decisions when you're fresh. People tend to make a lot of mistakes when they get tired, when they're not able to focus as well. So if you're in good shape, it's a good way to find yourself on the court just because if you know where to be, if you know how to be a good teammate, if you know how to read where to be on offense, where to be on defense, you just have a better chance of not making the mistake that's going to cost you down the line because you're fresh in the mind. So that's just, I think that's why it's such a big emphasis early on of making sure that you're in shape because you want to be able to execute at a high level and not have fatigue impair your ability to make the right decision or the best decision at that moment in time. And taking it back as we start to get into the preseason, a lot more scrimmages, a lot more live play, a lot more seeing how, putting you in game situations to get you ready for the regular season and practice. So this is when coach might have you scrimmage with another team or other players that you might see. They might have you scrimmage against older athletes just to get you ready for competition that you're going to see. So getting a feel for your plays, getting a feel for your sets, having some live actions to run through against physical people and not just on air to help get you ready for games and practices and situations to help make sure that when you come down the line and the season's coming to an end, that things are crisp, things are locked and loaded, things are executed correctly because you got a lot of practice drills, game-like situations early on, so you're not perplexed or you're not lost when things get tough or some teams throw something that you've never seen before. You're ready for any and all situations. So that's a big part of the preseason and just, fine-tuning things to be ready for the unexpected. And a big one I think a lot of people don't really think about is, there's an increase in intensity. You're running a lot more. Your cardiovascular health is probably at the highest it's been. But because you're exerting so much energy, you also have to think about how you're recovering, how you're taking care of your body, what kind of food you're putting in, how much sleep you're getting in. Those are all things to think about. And because your outputs are so high, it takes a lot more to replenish yourself, to put the right nutrients and hydration, making sure you got the right electrolytes or supplements into your body to replenish to help recovery and have you ready for the next day. If you know you got games Thursday, Saturday, and maybe you got to fly to the different place, you might have to you're gonna have a lot of flights that you hop on if you're in college or the pros, or if you're on high school, you got a potentially a bus ride or a regular car ride to your games. But as the season wears on, you're gonna hit a point where you feel like you're just kind of in a lull, or it's just it's getting very repetitive. And being able to take care of your body, being able to get enough sleep, being able to put the right things into your body is what helps put it over the top and keeps you as fresh as you can be. And understanding things like your team will have metrics that they like to track. So for things that we might look at is like your heart rate monitors, seeing how much exertion you're putting out through the games or through practices. Might ask some questions to see readiness, how you're feeling for the day. Do you feel like you need to get off your feet? Do you feel like you could go play 45 minutes if you need to right now? Just get an idea throughout the season, checking in, making sure that you feel like you're at your best to be able to help your team, however they might need you to help them for the day or for the day ahead. So just something really to think about. This is where it's really important to start thinking about how am I gonna, what's our schedule look like? What's my class schedule look like? How am I going to fit in getting my homework done? Also staying off my feet when I'm done with practice or done with games, making sure I'm getting enough meals in while we're on the road, getting enough protein in, getting enough carbs in, getting enough fluids in while we're on the road, where your routine's going to be changed, but we're working on, but you have an idea. If you can work on creating that routine of things that you got to get in and trying to keep it throughout the season, it's going to help so much when it comes down the line. So that's a big one that I think a lot of that gets overlooked and I think helps give players an edge as you start to get later and later into the season. And then in this preseason, we're also thinking about like the mental side of things. This is probably where you're thinking about personal and team goals, building your routines, what we just talked about from the like the recovery aspect of things, is building your game day routines. Do you like to nap before a game? Do you like to get a certain amount of shots up or go through a certain routine to get yourself ready before practice or before games? Are there certain meals that you like to eat that you like to have prepared um before game time or practice time? So just starting to think about those routines, what kind of things help you stay focused and help you get ready for what you have coming ahead at you. Writing down those team goals, writing down personal goals, and having ways to track how you're progressing towards it. Is it a certain statistics that you're trying to hit? Is it awards you're trying to hit? Is it a certain level you're trying to help the team get to? Just thinking about those things, writing those things down, and keeping track day by day, week by week, how you're progressing towards those goals. And remembering it's more than just that you're not focused on the end goal. The end goal will come, but it's more about the process of getting there and what you're doing every single day to help you get a little closer to that end goal. So if you have goals to win your conference player of the year, what are the things you got to do every day to get you a little bit closer? That's making sure you put the right things in your body, making sure you're a good teammate, making sure you're working on your skills, making sure your conditioning is where it needs to be, making sure you're a good teammate, a good leader, a good friend, someone who cares about the well-being of their team and not just about themselves. But I think that's you got to think about the journey of what it's going to take to get there. I understand it's a long journey, but the season will go by fast and it'll fly by, and just understanding that the journey is where the fun, this is where people are really separated, who really wants to make it to a certain level and who is content staying at the same. And if you fall in love with the process or the journey, then you are going to continue to stack days on top of each other, and that's when you start to see the results over the course of time, and not expecting anything to be given to you. Every day is a new day, every day is a new opportunity, but just making sure that you're doing what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. And that it's really a lot of it's just making sure mentally you're ready for what you need to be doing. Whereas the physical things will you've already put in throughout the summer or the off season, and now it's just more about how do I stay healthy? How do I make sure my mind is healthy? How do I maintain and continue to progress and help my team get to where we're trying to get to? And then last thing, just as you start to get closer to the regular season, you're going to start to, we're still, like I said, your workout intensity is going to decrease intensity. Workout volume is going to decrease, volume is going to increase. Trying to keep you fresh, trying to keep you ready, primed up, ready to go. We'll take a look at some of those things that we tested at the beginning, whether it's speed, whether it's endurance, or whether it's some strength, how fast you move things, just taking a look at creating some baselines, and then just making sure that we have a plan to make sure that you're fresh for the whole season, whether it's 32 games, 35 games, 42 games, 82 games plus playoffs. Make sure that you're physically ready to handle 40 plus minutes, 48 minutes, 53 minutes in a game if you go to overtime, making sure you're ready to handle any and everything that could happen in the game, and a lot can happen. So that's the importance of that's what's going to happen in the preseason. We talked about in this episode just the goals of preseason training, how things start to change, how things might change in the weight room, conditioning wise, and just on the court. I just want everyone to think, especially now as we get closer to the season starting. I want you guys to embrace it. Understand that it's such a privilege to be a part of a team and to be able to go on a journey with 15 other boys, girls, athletes looking to all achieve the same mission of whether winning your conference, winning a conference championship, making it to the state tournament, winning the state tournament. Everyone, you all have the same goals. You all have the same, thought process, and it's all about deciding that you want to make it that far, and then doing what you need to do every single day, even if you don't want to get you a little bit closer. And the teams that are able to be in good shape, that are able to be together, that are able to battle the ups and downs and withstand it, are going to most likely going to be the ones that are standing last when it comes time to it. And you never know. Don't listen to these preseason rankings. A lot of times in college they'll have preseason rankings, and you might be projected to finish last. But if you got a good foundation, you got good structure, and you got a good morale about your team, you can turn things around really quick and open a lot of people's eyes. So don't feel like don't listen to the outside noise. Stay locked in with your team and who you guys are riding with. Do the stuff that you needed to do. Feel confident about the work that you put in. Know that it's about to start ramping up here as you get closer to the regular season and ready for a long season. Excited to support. Excited to watch just all this basketball that's about to get played. Um, and that's all we got. That's what to expect with the preseason. Next week we'll just talk about in season, what that looks like, how things are going to change. How do you maintain your momentum while avoiding the burnout from the long season and the monotony of going through the same routine over and over again? So that's it. We'll catch y'all in the next episode. Subscribe to the pod, comment, review, leave feedback, and we'll go into more strategies. We're gonna go into in season next week, but then we'll also go into like how to structure drills, shooting, improving skills, things like that. Start bringing people on. So really excited for what is gonna come out of the pod, and really just appreciate you guys tuning in and listening, and we'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.